Most people dream of big, life-changing transformations. They imagine waking up one day with a completely different body, a successful business, or a fulfilled life. But here's the truth. Change rarely happens in one giant leap. Real transformation comes from small, consistent improvements done every single day. Think of it like planting a seed. You don't expect a tree the next morning. You water it, you give it sunlight, you protect it from pests. And over time, almost invisibly, it grows. One day, without realizing it, you're sitting under the shade of that tree. This is the power of the 1% rule. If you commit to improving just 1% every single day, those improvements compound like interest in a bank account. Over a year, that's not just a 365% improvement. Compounding turns it into something much bigger. Here's an example. If you improve by 1% each day for 365 days, you'll be 37 times better by the end of the year. That's not magic. That's mathematics and consistency. Why does this work? Because small changes are easier to start, easier to stick with, and easier to grow. They don't overwhelm you like huge resolutions. You're not trying to overhaul your life in one day. You're simply trying to be slightly better than yesterday. If you're learning a skill, 1% might mean watching a short tutorial and practicing for 15 minutes. If you're working on fitness, it could mean doing one more push-up than yesterday. If you're building wealth, it could mean saving just a little extra each week. Over time, these tiny steps create a massive gap between you and the person who didn't start. While others wait for the right time, you're stacking small victories every single day. And here's the secret. Most people give up because they don't see instant results, but the 1% rule demands faith in the invisible. You have to trust the process even when you can't yet see results. The roots grow before the tree appears. The muscles strengthen before the mirror shows it. The skills sharpen before others notice. If you commit to small daily improvements, you will look back in a year and not even recognize the person you used to be. Have you ever seen someone go to the gym for a week, working out so hard that they're drenched in sweat, lifting heavy weights, and making bold claims like, "I'm going to change my life," only to quit a month later? That's because intensity without consistency is like lighting a match in the wind. It burns bright for a second and then disappears. We live in a world addicted to quick results. People want the 7-day abs, the 30-day riches, the instant success story. But the truth is, sustainable success is rarely built in short bursts. It's built in the quiet, repeated, sometimes boring daily actions that nobody sees. Consistency is a superpower because it turns effort into habit. And once something becomes a habit, it no longer relies on motivation. It runs on autopilot. Let's use an analogy. Imagine two people trying to fill a bucket with water. One person pours a huge amount once in a while, splashing everywhere, missing the bucket half the time. The other person pours a small, steady stream every single day. Who fills the bucket first? The one with the steady stream. Consistency works in every area of life. Learning. Reading 10 pages a day beats reading 300 pages in one sitting and then not touching a book for months. Health. Walking daily beats running once a month until you injure yourself. Business. Posting valuable content regularly beats a sudden flood of posts followed by months of silence. Why does consistency win? Because it compounds. Each day's effort stacks on top of the last, creating unstoppable momentum. Intensity has its place. Sometimes we need to push hard to break through. Barriers. But without consistency, intensity fizzles out. A sprinter can explode off the line, but if they're running a marathon, that initial burst means nothing without steady pacing. When you think of the word success, you might imagine it as a single massive event, like winning the lottery, getting a big promotion, or having one viral moment that changes your life. But in reality, success is almost never one big event. It's a slow, steady buildup of tiny actions, repeated over time, that compound into something extraordinary. Compounding is one of the most powerful forces in the universe, and it doesn't just apply to money. Yes, compound interest can turn small savings into a fortune over decades, but compound effort can turn small habits into extraordinary skills, relationships, and results. Let's break it down. Imagine you want to learn guitar. You could play for 8 hours one day and then not touch the guitar for a month. You wouldn't get far. But if you played for just 30 minutes every single day, your progress after a year would be mind-blowing. That's compounding. It's like drops of water falling into a jar. At first, it feels like nothing is happening. The jar is still empty, but day after day, drop after drop, it begins to fill. Eventually, the jar overflows, and people around you think it happened suddenly, but you know the truth. It was years of drops. The most successful people in any field have mastered this principle. Writers don't write a masterpiece in one sitting. They write a page a day. Athletes don't achieve greatness in one workout. They train every day. Entrepreneurs don't build empires overnight. They take small, calculated steps over years. The beauty of compounding is that it rewards patience. Most people fail because they get impatient. They want to plant seeds today and eat fruit tomorrow. But the ones who understand compounding don't rush. They trust the process, knowing that time is their ally. So here's the truth. If you commit to small, repeated actions, even when they feel insignificant, one day, you'll wake up surrounded by results you can barely believe. Perfection is a trap. It's the reason so many people never start, never finish, or give up halfway. They think, if I can't do it perfectly, I won't do it at all. But here's the reality. Perfection doesn't exist. Even the most successful people are constantly learning, adjusting, and making mistakes. The difference is they don't wait for perfect conditions before they act. They start where they are, with what they have, and they improve along the way. Progress is where the magic happens. Every single step you take moves you closer to your goal. It might not be perfect, it might not be pretty, but it's movement, and movement creates momentum. Let's say you want to start a YouTube channel. If you wait for the perfect camera, the perfect lighting, the perfect editing skills, you might wait forever. Instead, you start with your phone. You make videos. You learn as you go. Your first video will be your worst video. But it will also be the most important one because it's the first step toward your 100th and your 1,000th. Perfectionism kills more dreams than failure ever will. Why? Because failure means you tried. Perfectionism means you never even started. When you focus on progress, you free yourself from the weight of unrealistic expectations. You start celebrating small wins instead of beating yourself up for not being there yet. And those small wins, just like we talked about in the 1% rule, add up over time. Even nature follows this principle. Rivers carve valleys not through sudden bursts of force, but through steady, consistent flow. The Grand Canyon wasn't created in a day. It was the result of millions of years of progress. So the question is, are you willing to be imperfect in the short term in exchange for greatness in the long term? If the answer is yes, then stop waiting. And stop polishing, stop hesitating, start moving, even if it's messy, even if it's slow. Because in the end, it's not perfection that changes your life. It's the courage to take one imperfect step. Think of life like pushing a heavy boulder up a hill. At first, it feels impossible. You push, but it barely moves. Every muscle aches, and you wonder if it's even worth it. But here's the secret. Once you get that boulder moving, each push becomes easier. That's the power of momentum. Momentum is one of the most underrated forces in personal growth. It's what turns small actions into unstoppable progress. One step forward today might not seem like much, but when you take another step tomorrow and another the day after, you begin to notice something. You're moving faster, with less effort, and your results are multiplying. The problem is, most people never give themselves enough time to build momentum. They take 1 or 2 steps, see no major change, and stop. It's like a rocket that shuts down its engines just before breaking through the atmosphere. They don't realize that the hardest part is the start. When you commit to taking just one step forward every single day, you eliminate the excuse of "I don't have time." A step doesn't have to be massive, it just has to be forward. If you're learning a language, your step could be learning 5 new words. If you're building fitness, your step could be doing a short workout. If you're saving money, your step could be setting aside a small amount daily. Over time, these steps stack. You look back after a month and realize you're not where you started. And that's the motivation to keep going. Momentum feeds itself. The more you move, the more you want to move. And here's the beautiful part. Once you have momentum, it becomes harder to stop than to keep going. Success stops feeling like a fight and starts feeling like a natural part of your life. That's when you've become unstoppable. When most people hear the word discipline, they think of restriction. They think of saying no to fun, of living a boring life, of denying themselves pleasure. But that's the wrong way to look at it. Discipline isn't about taking freedom away. It's about buying freedom for your future self. Think about it. Financial discipline today means you can travel, retire early, or work on your own terms tomorrow. Health discipline today means you can move, explore, and live without limitations tomorrow. Learning discipline today means you can work less and earn more tomorrow. The people who avoid discipline because they want to live for today often end up trapped in a future they don't like, in debt, in poor health, stuck in jobs they hate. The people who embrace discipline now are the ones who get to choose their life later. Discipline is doing what needs to be done even when you don't feel like it. It's saying no to short-term pleasure so you can say yes to long-term happiness. It's skipping the late-night scroll so you can wake up early for your goals. It's investing your time and energy into things that will pay you back instead of things that only distract you. And here's the magic. The more disciplined you become, the less you see it as a punishment. You start feeling proud of keeping promises to yourself. You start realizing that the things you once resisted are now just part of who you are. In fact, true freedom isn't doing whatever you want, whenever you want. That's chaos. True freedom is having control over your time, your energy, and your choices. And discipline is the road that takes you there. So the next time you don't feel like doing the work, remind yourself, every disciplined choice you make today is buying your future self a better life. Talent is a gift, but effort is a choice, and choice beats gift every single time. We all know people who seem naturally talented. They pick up skills faster, they shine without trying, and they make it look effortless. But here's the truth most people don't see. Talent without consistent effort eventually gets beaten by ordinary people who simply refuse to quit. Talent might give you a head start, but effort determines the finish line. Take 2 runners. One is naturally fast but lazy, training once in a while when they feel like it. The other is average but trains every day, rain or shine. Over time, the dedicated runner will pass the talented one, not because they were born better, but because they showed up when it mattered. Effort is something you control completely. You might not control your starting point, your resources, or your natural abilities, but you control how much work you put in. And when you choose to give 1% more each day, you close the gap between yourself and anyone ahead of you. In fact, many people hide behind "I'm just not talented" as an excuse. But the reality is, the world rewards persistence, not just potential. The people at the top aren't always the most gifted. They're the ones who kept swinging the bat when everyone else put it down. And here's the real beauty. Effort compounds just like money. Each day you work, you're not just improving your skill. You're building resilience, mental strength, and the habit of discipline. Those qualities alone can outshine any natural advantage. So don't worry if you're not the most talented in the room. Be the most committed. Be the one who shows up when others quit, because in the long run, the grind always beats the gift. The 1% rule is simple to understand but hard to live by, not because it's complicated, but because it demands 3 things most people struggle with: patience, persist. Ants and vision. Patience is about accepting that real change takes time. It's resisting the urge for instant results and trusting that small daily actions will pay off in the long run. Most people give up right before their breakthrough because they can't stand the wait. The 1% rule is a constant reminder that greatness is built brick by brick, not in a single leap. Persistence is about showing up even when it's hard, boring, or inconvenient. It's easy to be motivated on day one, but what about day 101 when you're tired and progress feels slow? The 1% rule forces you to keep moving no matter how small the step, because you know momentum is only built through consistency. Vision is about seeing the bigger picture when daily progress feels invisible. It's about imagining the person you want to be, the life you want to live, and using that picture as your fuel. Without vision, the 1% rule feels pointless. With vision, it becomes your guiding light. Think of the 1% rule like planting a forest. Each day, you plant a single seed. At first, there's nothing but bare soil. Months pass and you see a few sprouts. Years pass and suddenly you're walking through a thriving forest you built one seed at a time. The challenge is that in the beginning, the seeds don't look like much. But if you have patience, persistence, and vision, you'll keep planting anyway. And eventually the results will feel like magic to everyone else, even though you know it was just the 1% rule all along. So remember, your dream doesn't require massive leaps. It requires small, daily steps fueled by belief in the future you're creating. Stick to that, and your future self will thank you in ways you can't imagine today.